Let's move on to this. Cyberbullying continues to be a challenge among children now, with some children exposed to social media from a very early age. There are concerns about the negative impacts that this could have, especially on the little ones, if they are unsupervised. Now, a study by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research revealed that children are more prone to cyberbullying than adults. Let's discuss this now. We're joined by School Days CEO Paul Esterhuizen. Paul, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Let's just start by, defining something that I think we sometimes often take for granted, the word bullying, because sometimes we think people do know what we're talking about, but let's arm the parents right now who really don't know what we mean and the real definition of being bullied.
Okay, well, there are two distinct elements to bullying, and good evening to viewers, and I'd love to be in studio with you right now with a view behind me, but I'm not, I'm at my desk. And yeah, good evening to parents and custodians and households. I was looking at some statistics. Did you know that according to the census of 2022, we have got more than 18 or approximating 18 million households in South Africa? And I would define a household as typically with more than two and typically up to 4 or 6 or even 8 people living in that household. And 65% of those households have internet connectivity. And then came the internet and social media, and a child being raised today being cyberbullied. So the two distinct areas are physical bullying, where there's this intimidation, and we've all known about that because it's a time and age-old reality of strength versus, dominance. And cyberbullying is different. Cyberbullying is using social media platforms. It's using digital devices. It's the ability for someone to post something which is either harmful or shameful or in fact abusive about somebody else. And all too often, and we know this for a fact, that our teenagers have a vulnerability because the clamor to be connected, to have a device, to have an iPad, to have a tablet, to have the tech of the world is a reality, and all parents have to deal with it. And with that comes the challenge of how do we manage it? And looking at a child at school, and we're all about the days of a child's life at school, the school days of a child's life. And when a child has been bullied, and the subtle nuances of being bullied that come into the psyche of that child, they start feeling nervous and anxious, and in many ways they're ashamed. So they keep it private, they keep it quiet. And depending on where they're getting it, on a social media platform, on a chat platform, or even directly on their mobile phones, the inability to realize it starts taking its toll on who they are, and they start missing out on what they're meant to be doing at school and the learning time that they have for their school careers. And teachers are grappling with this at the moment because it's an invasive reality that comes into the psyche of a child. And ultimately, it's not just mental, but it starts playing out on the physical, the emotional realities of it. And cyberbullying is a growing phenomena. And it's a scary phenomena.
And quite scary, Paul, because you think about the fact that some parents think it's a good thing to introduce their children to cell phones and social media at an early age, and sometimes supervision there is lacking. And I'm listening to what you're saying, and there's real dangers for parents not to know what's happening on that device as their children continue to use it.
Correct. And scary, we have, and the internet seems to have this absolute extremity of being either very good or either being very bad. And where do we find a middle ground? Because the allure of kids to look at things they're not meant to be looking at. And similarly, even for adults, I was challenging on another talk the other day, I was challenging fathers to say, would you take your mobile phone and give it to your son, your teenage son, and say, my boy, you can look at everything I look at on my mobile phone because I'm not afraid of what I've been doing and it's good. Would your child come to you and actually talk to you and have the conversation about, Dad, I've been looking at things I shouldn't be looking at, or I'm being bullied, or I've been sharing things with others that I ought not to be doing. And the facts are, and if you look at it globally, if we look at Safer Internet Global Day was the 6th of February, actually, and a safer internet for the world is something that's clamored for in Europe and across America and in our own country. 1 in 10 children who has been bullied will actually step up and go and find an adult to discuss it with. They'll let their friends know, and the adult will be the last person who is trusted with the event that is happening. So I know we can carry on all night about bad, and where do we go? Where is there some kind of hope? And as adults, and I classify adults as children over the age of 18, young adults, and some of us who are grandparents, we've got a responsibility and a duty, because the internet traps us as well. We're all vulnerable to having the post or the thing that we said or the picture that we took and posted actually shaming us. And I think one of the guidelines we've got to have is to keep something very simple. If our children want to experience the school days of their lives that they ought to be doing, without the invasion of intimidation and cyberbullying, they've got to think about everything they're doing. Is it true? Because there is so much fake around. Is it helpful? If I'm posting something, is this really helpful? And the other side of it is, how can we be inspiring? How can we take the bad news that is so often the headline news, and how can we transmute that into something which becomes a positive? And wonderful to be saying, look at the 30 years of democracy and where we headed. And we've got a dynamic youth, a youth that's grappling with unemployment, a youth that's grappling with wanting to study further. And instead of always just berating things for being, difficult and unlike any ever time before, and where we're going to go from here, I think we all have, as citizens in South Africa, the responsibility to be ensuring that we can provide the education and we can educate our children to use technology effectively.
And Paul, you and I can talk about these things the whole night, but thank you so much for leaving us on a hopeful note and a positive note there, and reminding me as well that I'm now a grandparent. Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow.
But thank you so much for, just arming us with information, because essentially we don't think about these things as far as our children are concerned. But thank you for that. That is Schools Days CEO Paul Esterhuizen talking about something very concerning. If you're a parent and your child has a mobile phone or your child has access to social media, please do make sure that you continue to check what is it that they're watching online. And we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the issue of whether or not can we boycott giving municipalities our rates, or do we not have that right as citizens?